Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be checking out, we're going back to the 1080. It needs a good clean out. If you remember from the previous 1080 video we did, there was a bit of a smell on it. Well, today we're actually going to be cleaning it out. We haven't done it yet. So we're doing that today in this video. So stick around and see the difference between a 2017 card that has never been opened and one after it's been repasted and cleaned and no longer smells. So today we're going to be checking that out. So before we take the thing apart, we obviously need to know what kind of temperatures we're getting before, so we can do a before and after, because that's how these things work. You can't just do it and then show what it is afterwards. It's not going to work. So it's about 26 degrees at this moment in time. So that is the ambient temperature that we're dealing with here at the moment. Okay, so we're going to try The Last of Us Part 1 and see if we can get it a little bit hotter. I want to try and get it in the 80s if we can. The limit of the card is actually set in, well, according to MSI Afterburner anyway, it's 83. Normally it's 84 for NVIDIA GPUs, but it's showing as 83 is the kind of maximum temperature before it will start throttling down and cooling the card and ramping the fans up to cool the card down. But we're currently waiting for shaders to generate in The Last of Us. So I haven't mentioned it yet, but the system we're using for this video is the same one we've used in the last couple of videos. It's the ROG Strix B450E with the box behind me there. And I've had that quite a while now, but it's still holding up really well before Asus got bad. But anyway, it's still working just fine. Never had any issues with this one. So we're using this. It's the E variant of the B450 Asus ROG Strix, which is a good board. It's really good. It currently has the Ryzen 7 3800X in there and 16 gig of Crucial Ballistics Max RAM. They don't do Ballistics Max RAM anymore, so we are super happy to still have that in the system there, and that is running at 4000 megahertz. Well, you may also be wondering, why am I wearing a strange hat with a silver YouTube logo on the top? Well, I don't know why, but YouTube reached out to me and said, by the way, we have some things that we want to offer you. Which one do you want? So I selected the hat, and it arrived 2 days ago, I think, and this is it. I think it's pretty neat. It probably doesn't suit me and I look like a complete but this is what they sent, and it's totally free. Took about a month and a bit, I think, to turn up. I thought that was pretty neat. I don't really know if I'm going to wear it all the time, but it definitely does work in stopping the heat burn your ears if you're out in the sun. So on that basis, it's a 100%. Okay, so we're in The Last of Us now. It's done all the shaders, and we are not getting as high temps as I thought we would get in this game. Currently about 68 degrees. It is climbing very, very slowly, but it is climbing. It is maxed out on the GPU again. We're not using FSR in this game, so this is native 1650 by 1050, I think, is the maximum resolution of this particular monitor. At some point, we are going to change the monitor that we're using here for this, so that we don't have that stupid 1680 by 1050 resolution that this monitor has. It's a ridiculous resolution, but that's all we've got at the moment. So we will be replacing this at some point. And that could be a factor in the temperatures that we're getting as well, because it's actually rendering lower than 1080p, which is not ideally what we want, but it's what we've got. So that's what we're going with today. So I need to try and just climb up the wall. I'm not doing very well here. Okay, so we've had a bit of an internal discussion, and we feel that to make it fair, rather than gameplay, because we weren't getting the temps that we were kind of hoping for in those games, we're going to be running Heaven, as you can see on the screen now. Something that we should have done at the beginning. We're already getting up to 74 now, which is a bit hotter than we were getting before. And it's a more fair comparison, because it's literally running on a loop exactly the same every single time it runs. So there's no variation in us walking around a game level, for example, where things are different and changing all the time. So this is constant, and we feel this is probably better for this baseline test. So at the moment, it's been running for about 5 minutes. It hasn't gone over 74. So I think we're going to use the well, it's 73 at the minute, but went up to 74. We're going to use 74 as our kind of baseline result of this test, and then we're going to clean it out. So we're going to take this out, strip it all down, put it all back in and do the test again, and hopefully it is a little bit cooler. Bearing in mind this card hasn't been opened since 2017. Okay, so first thing we need to do is just show you the 1080 again. This is the MSI 1080. It is a 2-slot card, and I don't know if the camera can focus on that, but it doesn't protrude past 2 slots, so it's real nice and fit in a lot of cases that can only take 2-slot cards. So an 8-pin and a 6-pin on the power connector there. So it does overclock really, really well, but we're here to take it apart. So there are an array of screws that we have to remove to get to remove the back plate there. And obviously that includes the void sticker and the sticker that's on the actual GPU screws. These are the 4 GPU mounting screws there. So we'll take that off, and then hopefully the actual fan and the heatsink will come off in a moment. So let's start with the back plate. So something that I like to do when I take things apart is put the screws in the same position. So obviously this is flipped for you, so I'm going to be putting that on the table in that position, and I'll basically copy the layout of that but on a flat surface somewhere else, so that I know which screws go where. Okay, so we've got the back plate off, so that should just pull off nice. And oh, we're missing the screw, the one on the void sticker. Let's not forget that one. Now, before you say anything about warranty, this is obviously a 1080. It came out in 2017. There is no warranty on it. If it's a new car, then obviously do not do this, because you will void your warranty. And if there's a problem, they won't take it back. So only do this on a car that does not have warranty. Okay, so we've got the panel off now, the back plate off, and that looks a funny color. Let's flip it around the correct way. We can see it's slightly discolored around this area. I suspect that's heat that's caused that. It feels like there's a plastic, kind of a plastic, because you can tell it's shiny, can't you? You can see the light reflecting off of it. And it's discolored. I think it's kind of melted the plastic. I don't know why there's plastic on it, but there is. That's how it came. I didn't do that. I didn't put that on, obviously. It's really, really stuck down, so it's not something we can take off, but it looks like it is coming up, because you can see as I push on that, it's actually pushing it back down and making contact with the back plate itself. So very strange. I don't know why that is, but we'll give that a clean up the best we can. Okay, so moving on to the rest of the GPU, we've obviously got the 4 GPU mounting screws there, so we're going to have to remove those next, and I'm hoping this card is really easy to do. That was really easy to undo. Like I said, this card has not been opened before, so we're going to keep those separate, because let's see if you can see it. GPU mounting screws normally have a spring around it for tension, and that's how you can tell that's a GPU screw. So we'll keep those together, because it's pretty obvious where those go, so we shouldn't have any issues. So what I was talking about warranty is that this screw here, normally on GPUs, it has a little sticker over it. Now, most manufacturers do this, and that's obviously to tell if someone's been in it, because now I'm going to break that and undo it, and now you can see that's clearly been used because I've just put a screwdriver in it, but that's how manufacturers can tell that you've been in it. The sticker has an MSI logo on it, so okay, so that's oh god, that came off really quick. So that's the that's all of them off for the GPU mounting, so we should be able to just pull this off now. And obviously you need to, well, maybe it's not so obvious, but you also need to remove the fan, and if your graphics card has RGB, you need to remove that too. So we've pulled out the fan cable there, and we should just be able to lift this off. There's another one under here. Oh, because this thing does have RGB. Oh, let me turn it around. Okay, so we also need to pull out the RGB one, because you can change the color of that MSI logo, believe it or not, using the MSI software, so which is pretty cool. And there's another one over here on this one, so we'll take that one out. Okay, so that's it fully removed. from that, and you can see under there it's kind of discolored, so we're going to give that a clean off. Okay, so that's the heatsink and fans off. We'll clean that out separately. We've got this metal, looks like, I guess this is some kind of heatsink. It goes over all the power delivery here. You'll see that in a bit. I'm guessing this is stuck down by thermal pads because there's no screws that I can see here. So I'm just hoping that they will just kind of pull off and then we can clean underneath, because I can see a lot of dust and things underneath here. You can see there, look, lots of dirt and grime from where it was used by the previous owner. So we're going to dust all that out. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to try and pry the heatsink off the power delivery so that we can give them a good clean. And to do this, I'm just using a flathead screwdriver. You can use a spudger if you've got one, and that will be a bit safer, but do as I say, not as I do, basically. You can see there they're lifting up, so it's definitely just thermal paste holding that up. One thing I have just noticed though, there is a screw or two screws holding it on there, so we will have to remove those two to actually pull it off safely. Okay, so that's the screws undone. We should just be able to prise this up now. Now I'm being really careful not to scratch the board doing this. Obviously you be super careful. For me it doesn't really matter, but there we go, it's coming off. Very gentle. Pry that off. I think that's just coming off now. There we go. And that is the metal. The heat pads are on there. So that was the only thing I was worried about taking this thing apart, is that the heat pads were going to be so worn that we'd have to replace them. I don't have any heat pads, so I wouldn't have been able to replace them, but actually if we look at those, they look in really good condition, and I'm really happy that they're in good condition. They're not worn, because now I don't have to replace them. So actually, if you're wondering what those are, well, that's actually the memory. So this has 8 gigs. There should be 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Obviously each one is 1 gig, and they are cooled using the back plate and obviously the fans to cool that down. But yeah, each one of these is 1 gig. This here is the power delivery side of it. That's where the power comes in, and then that splits the power into where it needs to go at the correct voltages and such. But I can see a lot of discoloration here, so we are going to get cleaning this thing and we'll come back, put it all back together and try it again. So this here was the heat delivery heatsink, and as you can see it goes over there like that, and I've just prized it off. This is probably the worst actually. Look at the discoloration on here. This might actually need replacing, but as I said before, we don't actually have any, so I'm going to try my best to clean those off and the fins and everything to try and get rid of some of that discoloration, and that should help its performance a little bit. But yeah, that's not a good look, and we will probably get those replaced at some point. So a couple of the things that we're using to do this is, obviously we're using isopropanol spray, and we're using a soft brush, as well as the screwdrivers and things that you've already seen. So if this is what you need to do or want to do to your card, that's kind of the things that you need. You can pick this up, it's not too expensive, and a brush for a couple of pounds if you're in the UK, but very not expensive, just for prolonging the life of your GPU. Okay, so we've cleaned the fan housing and the actual heatsink itself and the fins. There's no more stains on there, which is quite nice to see. So that looks really nice now. And we've obviously cleaned all these as well, the heat sinks that go onto the PCB itself. So we're going to reattach all these now and give it a test. The only thing that we couldn't get off properly, as I mentioned earlier, is the stained colouring on the existing heat pads there. We can't replace those at the minute. We are going to replace those later, as I've already said, so they're going to have to stay as they are for now. Okay, so that's the heat sinks back on both sides. We put the back plate on to help secure the heat sinks on this side, because they are actually screwed in from this side, and it kind of closes it all together, which is exactly what we've got nice and sandwiched. So the thermal paste we're using is Arctic MX4, very popular, very inexpensive. You can pick it up on Amazon for about a £5, I think. If there's one thing that I think thermal paste manufacturers, or any kind of syringe based manufacturer of this kind of material, you can see here, well, hopefully the camera can see, it's only half full, yet the actual piston that pushes in goes all the way. Why can't they just put an extra bit in, make it longer? Stop wasting plastic. We live in tough times, we've got to stop wasting plastic like this. Anyway, for now we're just gonna get this thermal paste put on. We're going to put a blob on and we're going to spread it so it's nice and even before we put the heatsink on. Like that. And we're going to use the thermal applicator to spread that nice and thin on the GPU die itself. So there we go, nice and thin on the GPU die there, and we've got some bits that come out on the outside there of the die itself. We don't need to worry about that, that's going to be perfectly safe, so we can go ahead and mount the cooler. Now this bit might seem a bit tricky, but basically you've just got to do it upside down and kind of line up the holes from the other side. So we've got to flip this up without disconnecting the fans or touching the paste too much so it doesn't make a mess, and then you kind of have to just line up by looking through the holes. At least that's how I do it anyway. If you've got a better suggestion, then please comment in the description down below. Okay, so we've had the system running for about 5 to 10 minutes now, and we're up to 70 degrees with the glass side panel on, as we did earlier in the video. It doesn't seem like much. It's 4 degrees off of what we got before, but at least we know now the card is clean, doesn't have any marks or anything like that on it. The dust has been removed, and it should last a little bit longer. It should get higher boost clocks. One thing I have noticed is that since the previous tests we're at 100% instead of 99, and our power usage I had set to 108, I think it is on this card. it regularly goes over 100% on the power usage now, which is more than what it was doing before it was clean. So it basically means that it knows it has extra headway to put more power in so we can get more clock speed out of it, which is a good thing. Now, every card that you take apart is going to be different. Again, don't do it if you've got warranty. Give it to the manufacturer or the place that you bought it from. Let them deal with it if there's an issue. As long as you haven't already opened it, then they should be able to sort it for you. But if you've got a card that is older, that isn't in warranty, that may be getting on a bit now, or that's just come out of warranty, then it might be worth just doing the same thing. As I was saying, every card is different. Some are really easy to open, like the broken 1070 that we've got here. This one is extremely easy to open. Doesn't have a back panel on it. Literally just has a couple of screws and you're in. Well, okay, maybe more than a couple of screws, but it's a lot easier. It doesn't have the heat sinks that the 1080 does, but then it doesn't need it, it doesn't get as hot. I don't have any AMD cards, so I don't know what they're like to take apart. I imagine they're similar. Some can be complicated, some can be rather easy to take apart. If you want to see someone that has taken some apart, then I highly suggest you go and check out Tech Lab UK, who has taken apart AMD cards more than I have. He has a lot of AMD cards, so he would be the person to go to for that kind of thing. But most cards are fairly easy as long as you take your time and remember where the screws went. And if you're really not sure, then there are a lot of guides on there that really go into detail about how you strip something down. Normally they've got a bit of music going over the top of it or something like that. They're not speaking ones normally. And they will show you with a top-down view how to strip down a thing, whether it be a laptop or a GPU. Anyway, I think that's a good result. Although it's only 4 degrees and it doesn't really sound like a lot, it's a lot when you're talking about GPUs. It can make a big difference between a certain clock speed and a really low clock speed. So that's a good thing. It's 4 degrees less than we had before, and it's still ambient temperature of 26 degrees in here. So it's still quite warm. So it's the same as it was before, basically. That hasn't changed. I think that's good. I think it was worth doing. Just take your time, follow the guides, and you'll be fine. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. I hope you like the hat.